Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time to come to today's webinar. Today, we will talk about the compliant food export, that is the compliant pathway to the Canadian market. Today's topic is divided into the three parts, and now let's start with the first part, the laws and regulation framework in Canada. So the authority in Canada relevant with the food safety are two main authorities. One is Health Canada, that is responsible for develop the policies, standard, and guidelines, conduct the food-related health risk assessment, and also promote the updating and optimization of the food regulatory framework. The other one is the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which is responsible for enforcement and implementation of federal food-related regulations, conduct compliance inspections, facility audits, and other work, and also collaborative handling of food safety emergencies and risk management. The regulation framework in Canada are based on two important laws. One is the Food and Drug Act. The other is the Safe Food for Canadians Act. And for the two laws, the two regulations, food and drug regulations and safe food for Canadians regulations are drafted. And also there are other documents that are relevant with the food and drug regulations, like food compositional standards, which defines the definition for certain kinds of food, the list of permitted food additives, which list the additives that can be legally used in the food, and also the requirement for contaminants and microorganisms and so on. So basically, this is the framework in Canada. And when we export food to Canada, it's recommended that we check all the regulations and the documents to make sure our product meet Canada's requirement. Next, we will talk about the second part, which is the common issues when we export food to Canada. So first one is always the access. That is, can we export this food to Canada, or is this food allowed to be exported to Canada? Let's take an example of the meat and the meat product. So for example, enterprise in China, and it wants to export beef to Canada. That is the frozen or fresh beef product, the beef meat. And first, when we check Canada's regulations, we will find a list of eligible countries that can import, that Canada can import meat and meat product from. And in this list, it says which countries can export meat or meat product to Canada, and also the type of meat product, like if it's a beef or beef product, or poultry product, and so on. But for beef, there are two additional important lists. One is the list for BSE. The other is the list for FMD, the foot and mouth disease. So those two lists is prepared from the Canada authority, and basically list the countries which is considered free or negligible risk from the BSE, and also the countries that is free or negligible risk from the FMD. So if a country, enterprise in a country wants to export beef to Canada, they should be, or their location, the country of their location should be on both of the list. And in this case, they can export the beef, or otherwise they cannot export the fresh or chilled beef, but it's under certain conditions, they may be able to export the beef product to Canada. So the second common issue we normally find is the edibility determination. That is, whether an ingredient can be used as the food ingredient or it cannot be used as an ingredient in food. So let's take an example like the plant angelia. So in China, it is defined as a spice, and the part that is can be used as a spice is the fruit, the tender shoots, and the roots. This ingredient can also be used in Canada and also is defined as a spice. But the leaf, the flower, and the seed in Canada is defined as the food ingredient. So the difference in the definitions in the different countries leads to the different pathways. And when we use the spice like Angelia, we have to make sure we use the right part of the plant. And the next common issue is the use of food additive, and also an example that is the cyclamate. So in China, the cyclamate is a sweetener and can be used in various of food. But in Canada, when we check the list of permitted sweeteners in Canada, we will not find cyclamates, which means cyclamates is not approved in Canada. So in food we export to Canada, we cannot use cyclamate as a sweetener. And this is a common issue that we should be careful because sometimes, like a cyclamate in China, it is quite often a sweetener. But when we export food, it doesn't necessarily mean this food additive can be used in China. It can also be used in food for Canada. And in terms of food additive, so far Canada approved the 15 list of food additives with the functions. And in some countries, we may see there are more functions of the food additive. For example, the antioxidant, which we will not see or we will not find from the list of additives in Canada. We don't see an antioxidant is an approved function, but this does not mean an antioxidant cannot be used in Canada. It may be categorized as other functions. So, for example, antioxidant in the fat and oils in Canada is categorized as the preservatives. And when we go to the list of preservatives, we will see some common antioxidant like BHA or BHT. Next issue we normally see is the nutrition fortification. So in Canada, nutrition fortification sometimes is mandatory. So, well, for example, in this table here, it lists the food which may or must have the nutrient fortified. So not like some country, for example, in China, the nutrition fortification is totally voluntary, except in special foods. In Canada, some regular ingredient or some regular food, like the flour, is mandatory to add nutrients like vitamin B1s, vitamin B2, and so on. So either as the ingredient or the finished product of the white flour, it must be enriched with the nutritions, and then they can used as ingredient or can be sold to the consumers. And the next part is the common issues in the labeling. So first part is the allergens. For different countries, including Canada, the allergen source may be different. And when we check the allergen source in Canada, make sure we get the correct list of the allergens. Sometimes we see the enterprise that they determine the allergen source based on their on the regulations where their enterprise is located. This is just to remind that when we export food to Canada, make sure we check the allergen list in Canada. And also next is the labeling of the ingredient. So in Canada, when we label the ingredients that is derived from plant, we cannot only label names like hydrolyzed protein, starch, or lecithin. We have to include the source of the plant where this ingredient is from. For example, instead of hydrolyzed protein, we have to label hydrolyzed soy protein to tell the consumers that this hydrolyzed protein is derived from the soy. Or when we label starch, we have to specify the source of the starch, like cornstarch. Similarly, for lecithin, we have to specify like soy lecithin. And also, another common issue is the labeling of the what we call the front of package labeling. This requirement is not yet coming to force, but will be implemented shortly. That is, it will come into force starting from 2026. That is the next year, and there's about only 35 days left. And for enterprise which already have product exported to Canada, and if you don't have this symbol on the labeling, we recommend that enterprise check if they have to put this labeling on their label, put this symbol on their label. So this symbol is about saturated fat, sugar, or sodium. And if the content, either in one portion or in a reference amount, is more than the requirement set out in the regulation, the enterprise needs to put this symbol on the label. So it could be one of the three nutrients or all of them um, based on the nutrition facts table. And in terms of the position, if the primary display panel, when the height is more than the width, the symbol should be displayed on the upper half of the label. And then on the other hand, when the height is less than the width, then the symbol should be put on the right side of the label. And for the cylinders, like the cola cans we normally see, not only it should be put on the upper half of the label, but also there should be a 10% buffer area or 10% buffer range to both the left side and the right side. So this is to make sure when we put the symbol on the cans, it's not closely or very tightly to the left or right side, but it's in a relatively middle part and easy for consumers to read. Similarly to that symbol for supplemented food in Canada, there is also a symbol which is called the supplemented food caution identifier. And also the position is if the height is more than the width, it should be put on the upper half. Or if the width is more than the height, it should be put on the right half. And normally we would suggest that to make sure it meets the requirement, regardless the primary display panel, which we normally recommend the enterprise, if possible, put this symbol on the upper right half of the label. So to make sure this will always meet the requirement. And also the labeling format is sometimes could be strict in Canada. So for example, in the labeling format for the ingredient list and the nutrition labeling. So for ingredient list, it should be labeled in an area that is has a white color background, or sometimes with the maximum 5% tint of the color. Sometimes we see the enterprise that it is hard to measure the 5% tint background. And from on our point of view, whenever possible, the background for the ingredient list could be in the white color. And the text inside should be in a black color. And also the font should be a single standard sans serif font. That means could be one of the font like Arial, the Calibri, and so on. So when we look at this slide, we see a capitalized letter T on the right part with little small circles. And this is one of the non-sans serif font. This is a Times New Roman font. And we see on the Times New Roman font, when there is the vertical lines or the horizontal lines, there are a little bit decorative patterns on the font. And this is one of the sans serif font. And when we prepare the ingredient list, when we prepare the nutrition information, and we should use the standard sans serif font. And also the area should be, if possible, marked with a black bordered line. So this line could be only on the upper and the lower part, or could be on all around the area for the ingredients. And if the background for the ingredients area, sometimes we see a dark colored area. In this case, when there is enough contrast between the background and the ingredient list, we can we do not need to use the lines to separate the ingredient list from other content from on the label. Similarly, for the labeling format of the nutrition table, so it should be a white background with a black typed color. Also, the font should be a standard sans serif font, and also when there is a background color that make a well contrast between the background and the table. So we should have the lines all around the nutrition table and also the lines inside the nutrition table. We see the thickness is different, and this is all is specified from Canada's regulation. When we prepare the nutrition factor table, we should always follow the template from the Canada's authority. Last common issue we see is the supplemented food. So when we categorize a food as a supplemented food, it must meet two requirements. One is it belongs to the food category for supplemented food. The other is it uses the supplemental ingredients. And both the food categories and the supplemental ingredients are specified in Canada. And also, when we decide if a food is a supplemented food or not, is we have to see if the food plays any health or physiological functions. Only in this case, and we use the correct, the proper ingredients, we can categorize a food as supplemented food. Otherwise, we cannot categorize such food as a supplemented food. So let's see some response strategy to the compliance issues. So first, for the product accessibility, and there is a system in Canada called the Automated Import Reference System. This system, information in this system can be used as a good reference to determine if a product can be exported to Canada or it cannot be exported to Canada. Let's still take the example of beef. So for example, there's an enterprise in China wants to export frozen beef to Canada. And when we check the system, we see the frozen beef For example, the chopped steak from China cannot be exported to Canada. And the reason is we mentioned the two lists. One is the BSE, the other is the FMD. China is on the list of BSE, that is, it has negligible risk of BSE, but it is not on the list of FMD, which means there is risk of FMD in China. So therefore, the frozen beef or also the fresh beef or chilled beef from China cannot be exported to Canada. But when we check the system for the beef product, like sausage, so beef sausage from China, we see this system. It does not say it cannot be exported. So when we export beef sausage to Canada, we have to submit information or documents shown on the right side. But still, from our side, to reduce or minimize the risk for enterprise as much as possible, we recommend in such case, the enterprise should also use the beef that is originated from the country's origins that is eligible to export beef to Canada. Otherwise, it still could give the enterprise some risk, or there is the possibility that when the product reach Canada, it cannot pass the Canada's custom smoothly. So the next is to determine the edibility of an ingredient. So in Canada, we normally check the product standard, the novel food ingredient list, the GMO ingredient list, and also other lists or regulations to determine the edibility of a food ingredient. One example is on the right side, there is a list of residue chemistry crop groups. In this list, most of the plant-based crops like wheat, like spice, herbs are listed in this list, and it is also considered a list that is helpful to determine the edibility, which means if any crop on the list, then the crop can be used as a food ingredient. But also we only need to pay attention to the which part of the crop can be used as the food ingredient. Next, still I want to talk about the food additive a little bit. That is, when we search the list of food additives, we not only check the food additives functions, but we also check the food additives names. The example is what we mentioned before, the antioxidant in the fat or oils. When we search the function, we would not find antioxidant in any of the list. But if we search the substance name like BHA or BHT, eventually we will find such food additive in the list of permitted preservatives. So this is from our side, we think this is a small trick to search the food additive in Canada. So, for example, this is the BHT in Canada. It is approved as a preservative in fat and oils, and also it lists the limit to use this substance in the fat and oils. Another thing I want to mention for food additive is the starch modifying agent. Sometimes in the food, we will use the modified starch, and when we put the ingredient name, we will label like modified cornstarch. The substance used to modify the starch is listed in the list of the food additive. And when we search for the modified starch, we will not find directly the modified starch in the list, but we will find what substance is used to modify the starch. And when we determine if a modified starch can or cannot be used, we should check the agent that is used to modify the starch, not the modified starch itself. And also, as mentioned, for the supplemented food, sometimes we see our product belongs to one of the categories that the supplemented food could be. And also, we use the supplemental ingredient. And to determine if a food or is a supplemented food or not is first we see the food category, we check the supplemental ingredient, but also we check the function or the purpose of the food or the ingredient. Is it only for nutrition fortification or is it for the health function? If it is only for the fortification, the nutrition fortification, then it is most likely it belongs to the regular food. But if it is for the functions that is plays some health functions or other functions to the human body, then most likely this food is a supplemented food. And also for the labeling, so when we prepare the food labeling, it is always a good habit to make sure we check the source or origin of the ingredients, especially for the plant or animal-based ingredients. We check if we put proper allergen information on the label, if we put we use the proper format for the ingredient list and also the nutrition information. And also we check if our product is a regular food or is it a supplemented food. Last thing we would like to share is we always put in mind of the nutrition fortification. So some common ingredients like flour or milk in Canada, it must be fortified. Uh, doesn't matter if it is used as an ingredient to manufacture other foods or if it is directly provided to the consumers. They must be fortified with the mandatory ingredient, the mandatory nutrient before they can be used. Last, just a brief introduction to FoodMate. So FoodMate has developed over 20 years in China and has a wide range of surveys like compliance consulting surveys, the special food registration surveys, the 3 new food registration, and so on. And not only in China, but we also serves globally, like mainstream markets, East Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceania, Europe, and North America. We're also trying to look for more opportunities in countries like in the Middle East and the Latin America. So if enterprise you have problems not only in China but also in the mainstream markets, you are welcomed to contact the FoodMate, and we will be helpful, be happy to help you. Last is our contact information and also the WeChat official account on the bottom. So if you have questions or you want to discuss some problems with us, you can send us the emails or check our website or welcome to our official account from WeChat. Well, thank you. And that's all for today's sharing.